unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxingego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Tim Bradley gives his thoughts on what Errol Spence should do, game plan wise, if he wants to beat Terrence Crawford. And you won't believe this. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, Tim Bradley just did an interview with Fight Hype, and Tim Bradley weighed in on the much anticipated Undisputed fight, July 29th. He gave his thoughts on basically what Errol Spence can do or should do in an effort to try to beat and dethrone the undefeated Crawford. The question, I'm just paraphrasing, was basically, if Spence came to you and you had to impart some knowledge or wisdom of the game, what should Errol Spence do in order to try to beat Terrence Crawford? And with very little hesitation, Tim Bradley responded and says, quote, patience. I say that because Terrence Crawford is a prolific counterpuncher. If you make a mistake, he's going to make you pay, right? And you guys got to pay attention. I'm giving you the direct quote. He says, Crawford, he's adaptable as well, which makes him even more dangerous because he's versatile. It's not even about the southpaw and switching and all of that. It's not even about that. It's about Crawford's brains, and he points to his head. He's like, it's about this. It's about Crawford's brains. He can turn it on. Now, the funny thing is, Tim Bradley, it honestly sounds like he's talking just to be talking. And I'll explain more in the back half of this right here video, because we unpack coming to you live. Why do I say this? Because I pay specific attention to linguistics, what people say, your vocabulary, the words you choose to use to illustrate your point, how you're saying it. Is there a level of conviction? If I'm in front of you, what is the body language? These are all things and metrics that I look at when I'm talking to a person or a man. In this interview, Tim Bradley's like looking down like he's at a funeral. So his body language was already kind of weird, but I'm not going to get into too much of the psychology in that. That's just something I know. He looked real melancholy, right? But the question, and this is why it sounds like Tim Bradley's just speaking to be speaking, is the question was, what information would you give Errol Spence to beat Terrence Crawford? And I just read you back-to-back quotes right after, and Tim Bradley is basically fawning over Terrence Crawford, bootlicking, and kind of being a brown noser. So it's like you're not even answering the question for real, for real. The question is, what wisdom would you give Errol Spence? And you're talking about Crawford's great and he's prolific counterpuncher and he's adaptable. Okay, so what about the part that you're helping Errol Spence? You're not even like truly paying attention to the question. And that's why I said it sounds like he's talking to be talking. Now, beyond that, with what he said, so he's drooling over Terrence Crawford, adaptable, I'm prolific, so gifted. I'm the type that's gonna go get it, no kid, la. Right? He's saying he's prolific and so gifted, all that. Okay, fine. But then here's where it gets interesting. Tim Bradley says, and I quote, Terrence Crawford, he can instantly become a hunter and just want to fight. Will that work in his favor against Errol Spence? Yes and no. Spence is physically tough, strong, and a great body puncher on the inside. Spence can be accurate up top as well. And then Tim Bradley goes on a tangent about when Errol Spence fought Porter, what did Porter do? Porter was able to change up his rhythm, bounce on his toes at time, attack, and then he would stand as close as possible, blah, 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 right? And he said that many thought that Sean Porter was winning the fight before he got dropped. His best work was on the inside, doubling up his right, yada, yada, yada. Now, I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close. When I break down boxing, you never catch me lacking. Like, it all makes sense. If you pay attention, you don't have facts over feelings, and you're willing to put your thinking caps on, it all makes sense. What Bradley's saying really doesn't make sense. One, like I said, the question is about how does Errol beat Terrence Crawford? And then you just started fawning over Terrence Crawford being prolific and a counterpuncher. And then you randomly go to Terrence Crawford is a hunter and he likes to fight and these kind of things, right? And he tries to mix it up. And he says, will it work in Crawford's favor? Yes and no. So all this other stuff you said, and then when things like finally get to you kind of answering the question and giving Errol Spence's side, like what he can do or what he can do or what he should do and these types of things, you say that Crawford is the hunter, but he likes to mix them, and will it work in his favor? Yes or no. And then you completely leave it ambiguous and don't expand or expound upon the yes and no. Like, you just hedged your bet. Tim Bradley just said that Crawford trying to fight against Errol Spence, yes and no, it'll help and hurt him. I mean, that's an oxymoron. Either him doing that is going to help or is going to hurt him. It can't do both in a given round, right? They say the human brain is it's a supercomputer, right? Very complex. And the human brain is incapable of thinking of two completely different, separate thoughts at one given time. It's impossible. Like, some people like to multitask. It's impossible. Two different thoughts can't occupy a space in your brain at the same time. Look it up. Now, you can have a lot on your mind and switch from thought A to thought B to thought C back to A, etc. But I'm talking about concurrently, simultaneously at the same time. Tim Bradley is hedging his bet, y'all. He's saying that it will help. He said yes and no. I mean, how is anything really, if you really think about what that phrase infers, it really doesn't make sense. Like, if somebody said, hey, Julian, are you hungry? And you're like, yes and no. I mean, that doesn't really make sense. Either you're hungry or you're not hungry, right? It's like direct questions. What kind of games being played? How's it going down? Right? So I thought that was weird. And that was the only thing where he was like kind of elaborating or trying to be objective about what Errol Spence does well. And he kind of got on that tangent. And then if you listen to it, he immediately switches and then starts. It's like, this is how I perceived it. It's almost like he caught himself giving Errol Spence credit, but he wanted to say true to Terrence Crawford and stay on code. So he didn't really expound on what he was saying. He just says, will it help Crawford? And like the bottom line is, he says Crawford can instantly become a hunter and just want to fight. Will that work in his favor against Errol Spence? Yes and no. Completely, if you listen to the interview, he completely says nothing about how it will and won't help him. And then he says Spence is physically tough, strong, great body puncher. And then he immediately switches subjects and says, oh, but what about when Errol Spence fought Sean Porter? So to me, it sounded like he felt he was given too much credit, and his breakdown or prediction would have had, like, if you ask yourself that question, which I'll get to in a second, the answer should be pretty obvious, at least on paper, that Terrence Crawford, it probably wouldn't be advisable to try to get in a shootout with Errol Spence, the bigger person who didn't move up from lightweight, right? It's probably not the best game plan you would think. And it's almost like Tim Bradley knows that. And instead of giving Errol Spence credit in a real breakdown, he kind of switched gears. Now, speaking of what he switched gears to, this whole notion about, oh, when Errol fought Sean Porter, what happened? I'm so perturbed by the lack of boxing knowledge and commentary that I'm hearing in the game. I don't care if you pick Errol. I don't care if you pick Crawford. I said that from the jump. But if you're going to pick a side and keep it there, as Nip would say, then that's fine. But when it goes to, if you're truly being serious, hand over heart, then I want to hear why you qualify that thought. I want to hear why you landed on that. And I'll be real with you guys. The people, especially public figures and stuff, a lot of people I see picking Crawford, it's not like any level of like realism. It's almost like, this is who I want to win, but I can't explain it, right? Bringing up Errol Spence, Shawn Porter, let's talk about it. We unpacked. So he says, what did Porter do? Porter was able to change his rhythm. Shawn Porter is a good fighter. He gave all of the big names, Kell Brook, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia, all of them tough fights, right? Shawn Porter has a resume. He has crazy cardio. And the bottom line is with Shawn Porter, when Errol Spence fought him in 2019, and I was there, I covered it as credentialed media. I was there for the whole fight week in LA. Shawn Porter was a champion. Years later, when Shawn Porter fought Terrence Crawford, because the WBO, the one belt Crawford had since Jeff Horn, ordered it, Shawn Porter was a podcaster. He was on a 400+ day layoff before he fought Crawford. He wasn't a champion. He was doing a bunch of like commentary gigs. His own dad said, Shawn Porter didn't listen to me. My son wasn't listening to me. Shawn Porter confirmed this, says, my dad, I couldn't give him 100% or everything he was asking of me. He said something like this. You guys can go back and check that out. If you want me to do the research for you, then you guys got to get the likes up, comment, and let it be known in the comment section. Just say Shawn Porter daddy or Kenny Porter. Yeah, say Kenny Porter. If you write his name in the comment section, that'll notify me that you guys made it this far in the video and you want me to do a video rehashing that. But I was there. I lived it. Errol Spence versus Shawn Porter was a great fight against two champions. Not when Crawford fought Shawn Porter. Now, for Tim Bradley's sake, again, this is why I'm not trusting certain people's Spence Crawford predictions. It sounds stupid. I get it. Crawford sparred with you and whooped you. And now you have a respect and you like him better. You don't really like the PBC fighters by and large. I get it. But it's a shocker that some people got laid off from ESPN like Andre Ward, but somehow Tim Bradley with these mind-boggling statements still has his job. And he's just, like I said, it sounds like he's talking to be talking. So one of the other things that's frustrating with this whole what did Porter do to Errol? I've already broke down that Shawn Porter was at a different space of his career and a champion when Errol fought him. I was there. You guys go watch the fight. Second, I was there. I scored it. I had Errol Spence winning the fight. It was just a shootout, and Shawn Porter being tough, having a chin, he was making it interesting, and Errol Spence obliged him by not boxing intelligently, and going for a more aggressive approach. But the other thing with Tim Bradley, what he's saying, is if you're truly trying to give a fair, unbiased breakdown, Shawn Porter, even though he was a podcaster and on a 400+ day layoff, he was up on the Terrence Crawford scorecards as well. So why would a person, if Bradley is supposed to be that dude and he's supposed to be an expert in this field because he's a former fighter, why is he saying, quote, what did Shawn Porter do? Porter was able to blah, 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 and many thought Shawn Porter was winning the fight before he got dropped. Guess what? Many thought that Shawn Porter was winning the fight versus Crawford before he got knocked out, and a lot of people, they were left with a sour taste in their mouth from the knockout. So it's like, I really feel it shows, and it seeps through certain commentators and old media. It seeps through their pores when they constantly attempt to break down fights, and it's insanely biased. You could tell it's biased because either you're not A, qualified to speak on this because you haven't watched all the fights or the pertinent fights, or B, you're purposefully leaving out pertinent details and information to try to make your case. Notice on my channel, I never do that. I don't lie to make a point. I don't leave out details that I know about in order to try to make my point hit harder. So how is Tim Bradley going to say that Shawn Porter was up versus Errol Spence? I didn't really even see that. But even if you did see it, guess what? He was up when he fought Terrence Crawford too. So what are we talking about? Bomac, Crawford's own trainer, told him in the corner, I think the round before Terrence Crawford turned up on him and got the stoppage, he says, the judges have Sean Porter up, you're down on the scorecards. And Bud was like, what? No, I don't think so. And he's like, bro, you're down on the scorecards. So again, why is Bradley talking about, oh, before Errol dropped Sean Porter, some people thought he was up. At the end of the day, I highly, highly doubt Errol Spence has a relationship with Tim Bradley and or would take his advice. The other thing that sounded very weird to me is the question was posed as basically give Errol Spence the blueprint on how to beat Terrence Crawford with things you're comfortable with saying. Like, give him some like tutelage. Bradley's tutelage or the knowledge that he wants to impart was that Errol should be patient. Like, it's literally the first thing he said. Errol should be patient. I mean, like I said, I highly doubt Errol Spence. I don't think Errol Spence even likes Tim Bradley. I think he called him a coon on social media one time. But beyond that, or he said his commentary suck or something. I remember seeing it, I believe. But anyway, make sure you follow me on Threads. It's Meta's response to Twitter at BoxingEgo1. Follow me. It's the same as my Instagram. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram at BoxingEgo1 and also on Threads. So the bottom line is I highly doubt Errol Spence he has a great trainer that he has a great relationship with, Derek James, who's basically trainer of the year for the last couple years. Great stable, great knowledge, never too high, never too low, perfectly centered trainer. So he's not going to even listen to Bradley. But even if you listen to Bradley, listen to the game plan. He's telling Errol Spence, who is a pressure fighter and a pressure cooker style, and a guy who throws volume of punches and breaks you down mentally, spiritually, and physically. And Bradley is telling Errol Spence, hey, don't do that. My advice to you is to be patient. Get the out of here, bro. That sounds crazy. Errol Spence is he's a boxer puncher, and he breaks people down. He breaks people's bones and breaks their eye socket. And you got Bradley basically telling him to lower your output for Terrence Crawford. So the bottom line, let me summarize this. I truly think Bradley is capping. I don't think he's as confident in Crawford winning, and it keeps seeping out in these interviews. He's saying this weird stuff like Errol should lower his output. But you just said Crawford is a brilliant counterpuncher. So if you're a brilliant counterpuncher, like Danny Garcia, very underrated counterpuncher. So if you're a brilliant counterpuncher, then guess what? Do like Danny Garcia did with Amir Khan and catch him in between the combination. That's not what Bradley's really saying. He's saying that Errol is a voluminous guy and he's strong to the body and to the head. He's accurate, but he should be patient and kind of slow down. And to me, I find that foolish because at the end of the day, Errol's going to fight the way he wants to fight and how him and his coach have drawn up. They're going to go with that play. But beyond that, I think it really sounds like Bradley is trying to sabotage Errol Spence. That's how I take it, because you're telling him to take away his gifts. Why would a bigger, stronger, in my opinion, bigger, stronger, and a guy with the crazy work rate? These aren't things that Crawford is known for in terms of people like, oh, he's downloading the data. He's a slow starter. These are things that people say about Crawford's style, but when he gets going, he gets going. You're telling Errol Spence to slow down and be patient and lower your output so Crawford can catch you. I mean, that doesn't make sense, especially if you said he's a prolific counterpuncher. Then you don't have to. If you're a prolific counterpuncher, hence the word counter, then you don't have to wait for anybody to slow down. You can catch and shoot or punch in between the combination and catch him, and that's that. But Bradley, like I said, it sounds like he's trying to tie Errol's shoes together before the foot race, and then he's claiming that Crawford can beat him. I mean, it doesn't sound like sound advice. I think Errol Spence should go in there with his game plan. And to me, if you're the bigger, stronger person and a naturally bigger guy, yeah, you should use your jab and use your power, because your jab is even a power punch, and you should try to walk him down. Errol Spence even told you all of these things. He said, everybody know me, I'm stepping. He said, I'm stepping, definitely, right? That's literally what Errol Spence said. He said, I'm stepping. So he said it to Stephen A. Smith on First Take. So Bradley's saying some other mumbo jumbo talking about Terrence Crawford is going to step, and Terrence Crawford's a hunter and it'll help him, yes and no. Like, it's just all over the place, and it sounds very weird. And he says if Spence can't get his jab working, it's going to be a tough night. I mean, that's the most fundamental punch. If you're a jabber, you're a jabber. How do you not? I mean, you don't. This is too easy for me, man. If you have a good jab, you have a good jab. There's few people, like, you just have to stick with it. You just keep shooting the jab, keep shooting the jab, keep shooting the jab. I mean, I've never, who did Crawford take their jab away? You know what I'm saying? It's a fundamental punch, because Kell Brook had a mouse under Crawford's eye. So I don't really know what Bradley's intent is. It sounds like he's trying to sabotage the man, Errol Spence, and have him fighting goofy or lower his output to give Terrence Crawford a better chance. And that's foolish. Errol's the bigger, stronger man. He said, I'm stepping. Everybody know me, I'm stepping. And that's what I think he should do. As the bigger man, I definitely think he should step. Just like he was saying, bump what Tim Bradley's talking about take your time and be patient. I'm not saying Errol should fight like an idiot, but if he can't keep up with the pace, then you put him in the meat grinder. Man, stop playing. We unpack. Introducing Super Thanks. Right here on the official Boxingego YouTube. Super Thanks allows you, the viewers, to show a little bit of extra gratitude, which enables me as a full-time content creator to push out the content you need in the world of boxing. Underneath all the videos, you will see a heart with the $sign in it. You can enter any amount that you find suitable as a super thanks. A brand new, interactive, and colorful way to get your comments highlighted and noticed by not only myself, but other people on the YouTube platform. Super thanks, a unique and cool way to show and applaud us full-time content creators. Hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Super thanks. The future is now. The Hibernation 5s by Kenichi Bear. Hybrid gaming and lifestyle headphones. Out of the box, you can connect to any console or PC. Bluetooth ready with a low latency USB adapter, color RGB, and extreme bass mode. The Hibernation 5s adjust to you. Whether you need a gaming, travel, gym, or lifestyle headphones, the Hibernations got you covered. The new Hibernation 5s, link in the description. Customize the way you hear the world. Welcome to the nation. Are you tired of your YouTube videos not getting any views? Well, consider TubeBuddy. I've used TubeBuddy for years to scale up my YouTube channel. Now we're sitting over 200,000 subscribers. TubeBuddy is a browser extension that offers a ton of built-in productivity and time-saving services to take your channel to the next level. Use my link in the description to get started with TubeBuddy and level up your channel faster. We working.